Last year, lovers of nostalgia clamored for the Nintendo Classic Edition. The $60 system that fit in the palm of a hand flew off shelves, and Nintendo couldn't keep up with demand. Then they decided to discontinue the product entirely and focus on future classic consoles. Even though the NES Classic is returning next year, this year is the time for the SNES Classic to shine. The Super Nintendo Classic Edition SNES Classic looks poised to be the big must-have item for the holiday season. Nintendo swears that they have prepared for the demand this time around. That's not the only clue that they've been listening to complaints about last year's NES Classic. For starters, the SNES Classic comes with 2 controllers instead of just 1, and the cords for those controllers are longer. The worst thing about the NES Classic was that it only came with 1 controller, and a second controller was almost as hard to find as the system itself. With most of the games included in the Classic Edition being 2-player, having only 1 controller was an awful decision. The NES Classic managed to bring back all of the nostalgia, even down to the feeling of watching someone play an old game, but just wanting to play yourself. The SNES Classic fixes this problem. The SNES Classic fixed the controller issue and kept everything else that worked for the NES Classic. It's tiny. It plugs into modern televisions with HDMI. Players can save their games at any time. It won't play the old cartridges, but it has 21 SNES games built in. That isn't quite the 30 that were included in the NES Classic, but it still manages to include most of the mainstays. It has all the fan favorites like Super Mario World, Super Metroid, Super Punch-Out!, Donkey Kong Country, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past and more. The problem with having only 21 games is that it misses some great games that have cult followings. The SNES had an expansive list of great titles. Having 21 of those games won't please everyone, but Nintendo picked the most popular. It even includes a brand new game, Star Fox 2. Star Fox 2 was developed but never released for the original SNES. Now, it finally sees the light of day on this new platform, which is a nice treat for fans of the series. The SNES Classic has some nice touches that only Nintendo is able to pull off, and it's all in the system's presentation. The menu music is a toe-tapping jam that is likely to get stuck in your head after a while. If you don't press any buttons on the menu screen, Mario walks out and scrolls through the games for you. He'll even jump onto your saved game files, which come to life on the screen. The game demonstrations are actually your past gameplay, rather than just canned demos of the game. For Nintendo, the little details make the experience worthwhile. The main argument against the Classic Edition consoles is that many of these games are available elsewhere, whether they were downloadable on the Wii or Wii U Virtual Consoles, or in the controversial world of downloadable emulators on a PC. But those options don't have Nintendo's charm. Nintendo shows why many considered them to be the Apple of video games. Sure, these games are available on other platforms, but not like this. Plus, there's something added to the experience when playing these games with the same controller in which they were meant to be played. There's also a new feature that Nintendo added to the SNES Classic Edition. Players have the ability to rewind gameplay now. This is a great feature for newcomers to these games that may find them to be too difficult. If you take a turn too sharply in F-Zero and wreck your futuristic car, you can simply rewind the gameplay and correct the wrong move. The SNES isn't perfect, but it has everything it should have for the $80 price. Wireless controllers would be nice in the modern world of wireless technology. Being able to access the game menu with the controller and not having to press the reset button on the console itself would have been great. Having the ability to install other games that aren't included in the lineup via wireless would have also been a plus. Of course, that also would have increased the price. These minor gripes aside, the SNES Classic is another wonderful novelty item from the minds at Nintendo. Even when not in use, the tiny box is a conversation starter as it grabs attention when sitting on a shelf. Just like the NES Classic, it's the perfect item this holiday season for serious gamers or for those who grew up with these classics but left the gaming world when games became more complex. The big question is if Nintendo can keep up with demand. We'll see if that's the case when they hit shelves on Friday.